Please welcome to the stage Suzanne Wilson Heckenberg, President, Intelligence and National Security Alliance, and Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, United States Army, retired, President and CEO of AFCEA International.
Good morning. Thank you for your patience as we kick off this morning's program. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the 11th Annual Intelligence and National Security Summit. I am thrilled to share that this year's program has drawn a record 2,060 attendees, actually almost 2,100 it says here in my notes. And our career fair, for the first time ever, we have drawn 400 attendees as well. Since our first summit in 2014, we have been guided by a core belief: bringing the intelligence and national security community together, bringing leaders from the public, private, and academic sectors who strengthen the nation's dialogue on intelligence missions, policies, and investments. This kind of open communication is at the heart of what drives both of our organizations. And the incredible support from our members and sponsor partners shows just how much this forum is needed. Thank you all for being here with us today.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's hard to believe a year has already gone by. One busy year. It's great to be back on the stage with you. AFCEA and INSA have a long history of delivering powerful summit lineups filled with impactful speakers and critical topics to our nation today. But a key part of what makes this program so successful is you. You, our participants, who get out there and see our industry partners, network, talk among yourselves, and especially during the breaks, just get out there and see what all is going on there with the fellow attendees. So please don't hold back. An event like this size is not possible without all of your sponsorships. Suzanne and I would like to give you our heartfelt thanks for partners such as, are we going to be able to bring them up? Our premier sponsors, Jacobs and Nightwing. Our keynote lunch sponsor today, Lockheed Martin. The pavilion sponsor, Carasoft Technology Corporation. Our reception sponsors, Carasoft Technology Corporation and Salesforce. And to our platinum sponsors, Dell Technologies, Google Cloud, IBM, KIP for Government Solutions, Markin, and Microsoft, and all of the other sponsors whose logos you see up here. Again, as I say at every one of our events, we would not be here without your partnership. So thank you very much to our partners.
We are pleased to also welcome many members of the press joining us today. We will be recording all of the plenaries and breakout sessions, and these will be available online within the next 2 weeks. Additionally, we will take audience questions throughout the program. For the sessions here in the main ballroom, please submit your questions by email to questions@intelsummit.org. During breakout sessions, moderators will collect your written questions on index cards provided in the breakout rooms. Please submit your very concise questions and legible questions early on in the program. And if you are sharing on social, use the hashtag IntelSummit24 so we can help amplify your message today.
Engaging with exhibitors is a key part of the summit experience. This year, we are thrilled to share with you that we have nearly 100 exhibitors joining us, and we barely fit outside. And please go downstairs because we also have additional exhibitors down there at the lower level as well. Our exhibitors come from companies that are bringing innovative capabilities to the nation's intelligence efforts. Our small and mid-sized partners are critical with their niche capabilities, and being able to see what they're doing and where they're going at events like this is so critical. Your direct engagement with them is a great way to gain appreciation for the innovation that is occurring in industry and for how innovation can be applied to provide advantage to the United States, our allied war fighters, policymakers, and especially to our decision makers. We hope all attendees will spend time exploring the creative technology solutions and display on meeting the dedicated professionals who are behind these technologies. I have worked with many of them, and to watch them go from their very first inception to delivering today in the time that they did is really amazing, and we just got to keep finding solutions like that. We also have our networking reception at the end of the day today, which will be another opportunity to connect. We hope to see you all there in the foyer just outside the ballroom here. Now, let's dive and get started.
In national security space, mission success depends on mastering the environment, outpacing the threat, and ensuring warfighters and decision-makers have the tools and training to prevail. At Lockheed Martin, we recognize the urgency to assure mission readiness. Instead of resting on our past, we're investing in the future. We're embracing innovation to advance the leading edge of technology, where secure multi-orbit data transport networks form the JADC2 digital backbone to rapidly connect sensors to shooters and enhance the speed of decision-making, where a next-generation multi-dimensional missile defense architecture drives warning and deterrence, where advanced position, navigation, and timing systems penetrate even the most contested areas, and immediate, real-time collaboration with allies provides pinpoint warning, targeting, tracking, and assessment capabilities around the globe, where in-orbit manufacturing, service, and upgrades drive dynamic space operations, and robust, live, virtual, and constructive test and training environments prove out joint warfighting solutions and prepare Guardians to prevail in conflict. From concept to capability, from the geographic to the astrographic, our resilient, diversified, and seamless architectures provide an unyielding foundation, ensuring those we serve always stay ahead of ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Maria Demarie, Vice President and General Manager, National Security Space, Lockheed Martin Space, to introduce our opening plenary session.
Well, good morning, and I want to start by thanking INSA and AFCEA for putting together this very important event for us today. Intel Summit is truly a unique forum for us where government, industry, and academia can come together and openly exchange ideas with one common goal in mind: strengthening and enhancing the intelligence community. Because as everyone in this room knows, in particular line of work that we're in, there's minimal room for error and zero room for failure. So to that end, I can't think of a greater authority to discuss the state of our intelligence enterprise than the person who leads it, the Honorable Avril Haines. Earlier this year, at a fireside chat at the CSIS Global Security Forum, Director Haines shared her powerful call to action to the intelligence enterprise, challenging us to leverage each other's capacity to streamline production and to connect that production to what policymakers, warfighters, and operators really need to make decisions. As the 7th DNI, her achievements include launching robust cybersecurity initiatives, keeping decision makers informed on strategic competition with China, increasing IC transparency and public engagement, leading the modernization of the intelligence communities, and truly championing diversity and inclusion. As a culmination of her efforts, she's ensured that our national security apparatus is agile, informed, responsive, and able to tackle the challenges of tomorrow with confidence and resolve. After some opening remarks, we will have a fireside chat with Louis Shepard, chair of the AFCEA Intelligence Committee. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, the Honorable Avril Haines.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you also to Susan and Suzanne and Ray and Tish and everybody else. I feel like it is wonderful to be here with all of you, our extended IC family in so many different ways. But especially because I wanted to come here today to discuss a critically important effort that we're engaged in across the intelligence community, one in which we could really use your continued help. This is an initiative that every leader in the intelligence community has taken up. In short, we intend to truly revolutionize the way we work with the private sector as well as academic research and scientific institutions to meet today's national security challenges, because we realize we have to in order to keep the country safe. We couldn't think of a better place to have this conversation than here. As you all know too well, the barriers that we face in this arena. AFCEA and INSA are critical, long-standing partners of the IC. For years, you have facilitated our relationship with the extraordinary array of private sector and academic stakeholders for different purposes, and this event serves to highlight how successful you are in doing so. But that also means you know how hard and how important it is for us to get this right. I started as a civil servant in government over 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more, and even then, we were saying how we needed to improve our public-private partnerships. I don't want to suggest that we haven't made progress. We absolutely have. But in today's strategic environment, the need for these partnerships is far more acute, and the kind of partnerships we need are often far more integrated across our community. This isn't just about sharing information, though that is clearly part of it. We need to understand each other better, learn from each other, work together more closely, grow together, and sometimes even make decisions together. This group understands historically how important the private sector has been to our national security and academia. Not only has it been a source of national power by underpinning our economy, but over the decades, industry has repeatedly accomplished incredible feats when called upon to build our military strength and support our work in the intelligence community. US industry, with help from academia, put a man on the moon in 10 years, and it provided almost 2/3 of our allied military equipment produced during World War II. That's 297,000 aircraft, 193,000 artillery pieces, 86,000 tanks, and 2 million Army trucks. In 4 years, America's industrial production doubled in size. The need for a strong and diverse defense and intelligence industrial base has not changed, even as the key industries may have shifted over the years, with more today in AI, in space, in digital technologies, in data. But there are other changes that have made our need to partner in new and different ways far more acute. First, there is no question that certain industries now wield substantial geopolitical influence, and as the threat landscape has diversified and power has become more diffuse, so has the potential impact of the private sector's work. This makes it crucial that we better understand developments in the private sector, as well as the overall balance of competitive strength and security within key sectors. Over and over again, we see how decisions made in the private sector have significant impact on national security matters of interest, intentionally or otherwise. To name a few examples, we all recognize how influential and important our tech companies are, often on the front lines of election security threats, cyber vulnerabilities, pandemic risks, and in maintaining critical competitive advantages in key technology areas such as generative AI. We also recognize the importance from a national security standpoint of our financial sector, energy sector, telecommunications sector, and aerospace sector, just to name a few, but also of private sector companies in other countries, such as critical rare earth minerals, mining and processing companies, that we rely on in the context of supply chains that are fundamental to our prosperity and our national security. And furthermore, technologies and tools that are produced and made commercially available by the private sector at times lower the barrier of entry for states and non-state actors to engage in malicious activity. We've seen, for example, how some of the same digital technologies that were instrumental in facilitating civil society and freedom of the press in many places sparked a backlash from authoritarian regimes, first to contain the risks posed by freer flows of information, and then to harness these same technologies in pursuit of their own objectives to stifle freedom of expression and to suppress political discourse. And we are increasingly relying on the private sector to implement sanctions against those who are threatening peace and security, and to ensure that adversaries like Russia cannot rely on our US origin or US branded items for their illegal war against Ukraine. But again, we need to learn from the private sector the details of the supply chain to understand the potential impact of disrupting it, as well as the potential unintended consequences of doing so. Second, we know that the private sector increasingly possesses certain unique and specialized talent, knowledge, and capabilities in key fields of critical importance to national security that we don't have access to in the government. Skills, knowledge, and capabilities that we need access to if we are to succeed in addressing the increasingly complex and varied threat landscape that we face today. When I was a young physics student many decades ago, the cutting-edge work that was happening was almost entirely funded by the federal government. Today, the United States still spends more than any other country on research and development, but as the data collected by the National Center for Science and Engineering demonstrates, over the past 30 years, business R&D has accelerated while federal investment has largely plateaued. And the fact is that today the private sector and academic research and scientific institutions funded by the private sector are more often than not at the edge of innovation in fields that are crucial to our national security, and we need to improve our access to and understanding of what they are working on in key areas, while also improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our capability and capacity to identify, develop, acquire, and scale innovation with and from such institutions. And third and finally, increasingly protecting the private sector is fundamental to our national security. This is true not only of privately owned critical infrastructure that provides the most basic life support for our population or for the defense and intelligence industrial base, but also key sectors whose intellectual property assets and expertise must be protected from foreign adversaries in the context of strategic competition. As reflected in the recent National Counterintelligence Strategy issued this month, foreign intelligence and security services, their proxies, and even non-state actors persist in seeking to acquire our most sensitive information, technology, and intellectual property. And to keep pace with these threats, as with all of the trends that I've highlighted, it is critical that we expand and strengthen partnerships and collaboration with the private sector and academia to not only improve information sharing, but to increase our insights into these risks, inform and enable threat mitigation activities, and will bolster our nation's resilience and facilitate collective action that is capable of promoting deterrence, even as we seek to ensure that the United States remains a magnet for those with talent and vision from around the world. And doing so is fundamental to our and our allies' capacity to maintain a competitive edge in the context of strategic competition. In each of these scenarios, we recognize that the private sector is on the front lines of attack, and in addition to helping institutions protect themselves, we must engage them in a new and different way. The leadership of the IC realizes the challenge before us. And each IC element is engaged in their own efforts to address these challenges, many of which you will hear during the course of this conference. But we have also come together to leverage each other's work and to truly revolutionize how we engage with the private sector as well as academic research and scientific institutions to meet today's national security challenges. We're taking a systemic approach that doesn't rely on specific individuals or ad hoc relationships that disappear when the people who built those relationships retire or change jobs. We're instead seeking to fundamentally change the way we do business, seeking to incorporate the private sector and academia into practically every aspect of our work within the IC and establishing a culture of responsible risk acceptance that encourages engagement, a culture that promotes the sharing of information in support of our efforts to improve our collective insights, address threats, and facilitate a far deeper exchange of ideas. And I imagine you may be skeptical, and I acknowledge that this is going to take some time, but let me give you some examples of what we're doing and planning to help you understand how significant the changes are that we're planning to make. First of all, I know that changing institutional cultures is hard, but I do believe it is possible, and already I think we are seeing some of what I've described, in part because our leaders across the IC see the importance of this effort and are talking to their workforces about it. We all, however, recognize that this is not enough, so we are taking a number of steps to effectively incentivize and facilitate a new level of engagement that is more consistent with the vision that I've laid out. We have agreed to build into our personnel evaluation reports a performance objective that incentivizes engagement with the private sector and academia. We are also seeking resources to promote an effort to build and train a cadre of professionals dedicated to downgrading information for disclosure to the private sector, building off of a great model at DIA of analytic releasability cells. We are also building out ways to improve the sharing of information across the IC that you give us for such purposes so that we're not all calling you to ask the same question over and over again. And we are promoting iterative best practices for improved engagements, including by streamlining and expanding the appropriate use of one-time read-ins and developing a library of products cleared for the private sector and academia, some portion of which will be made public. We have also established the Office of Partnership Engagement within the OD&I to facilitate the work and to evaluate our success. For the cultural changes we need, moreover, we are encouraging our analytic community to think proactively about the assessments they need to produce specifically for key private sector awareness, as well as to encourage sustained collaborative analysis going forward, instead of only thinking about the assessments they have to produce for policymakers. We are seeing the results of this in what we regularly post on our OD&I website, a key portion of the larger transparency effort that we prioritized in recent years. And I should note that efforts like the one that AFCEA has partnered with DIA on to build coalitions and strengthen networking opportunities between the IC industry and academia in the form of the TechInt conferences they've held is precisely the kind of help we appreciate. In addition to these efforts in support of engagement, we are seeking to significantly improve the access that IC analysts have to expertise and knowledge in the private sector and in academia, so as to incorporate those insights into our work while also supporting expanded analytic exchanges that allow both sides to combine our insights in ways that we believe will not only enrich our dialogue, but will also enhance everyone's understanding of the challenges and opportunities in these key sectors. And we're doing this through a variety of mechanisms, including an external research council that will provide the National Intelligence Council and through them all source analysts across the IC with the opportunity to access innovative external analytic research and to engage more regularly and collaboratively with experts who have critical external expertise and knowledge. We are also planning a significant expansion of the IC-wide public-private analytic exchange program that will be led by the Office of Intelligence and Analysis at DHS. The first phase of this is an expansion of the current and unclassified analytic exchange program in scale and scope, while simultaneously evaluating opportunities to conduct analytic exchanges that include classified information, which we know will take some time, but is absolutely worth it. In fact, we have already been doing more analytic exchanges that include classified information in other fora across the IC, particularly in cyber. And I suspect many of you are familiar with NSA's Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, which has significantly matured in the last few years and is helping to foster partnerships with industry, the interagency, and international partners to support the defense industrial base on cyber threats and challenges. NSA additionally, building on this model, established the AI Security Center to partner with industry on securing AI. And there is also the Treasury Department's Cyber Collaboration Suite, or T-Suite as they like to call it, which is breaking new ground in enabling exchanges between Treasury and private sector financial institutions on cyber threats. And then the Department of Energy's Threat Analysis Center pilot, which is a public-private partnership and operational collaborative to address cyber threats specifically to the US energy sector. And when it comes to the second pillar of our engagement strategy, improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our capacity to identify, develop, acquire, and scale innovation, we are also making a number of investments. And I'm not going to go through everything, but I'll tell you about a few that are underway. We are working on acquisition guidance that incorporates best practices to assist IC Elements in sponsoring SCIF space for contractors to expand relationships with key industry partners, building on a successful SCIF access program pilot that was done by NGA and NRO, and initiating a study to explore the feasibility of leveraging FBI and DHS SCIFs in key innovation hub areas for use by a broader set of government personnel and industry personnel. We are promoting models like NGA's successful Moonshot Labs, which is an unclassified innovation hub in St. Louis that enables industry, academia, and the IC to come together to create, collaborate, and innovate game-changing technologies to serve our mission. And NRO's Center for Advancing Science, Technology, Learning, and Engagements, or what they call CASTLE, which also enables the IC and academia to promote experiential learning through limited-term projects and prototyping. We issued policy guidance just recently and initiated our first training sessions to help IC Elements leverage the recently expanded Other Transaction Authority that Congress passed, which offers greater flexibility for IC Elements to develop programs that leverage technological innovation. We are working with industry on the development of an emerging technology curriculum that will familiarize the acquisition workforce with the unique business considerations of emerging technology companies and the full spectrum of available acquisition authorities to integrate and scale innovative technology. And we are starting the first pilot courses this fall. We are promoting broader IC use of successful models like NSA's Program Triad and CIA's Federal Labs, which are allowing for better integration of the program manager, mission, and technical leads through the acquisition and adoption cycle to accelerate user adoption and innovation at the speed of mission. And CIA also brought on board a chief technology officer and stood up a unit focused on leveraging America's private sector technological expertise for national security advantage, while also prioritizing adversary technologies as a target for intelligence collection. CIA's engagement with US industry pioneered secure cloud computing for the IC, which we believe in turn improved the design and cybersecurity standards for our corporate partners. NSA has also taken this effort to new heights by continuing to grow our partnerships and industry cloud providers through NSA's hybrid compute initiative, which allows us to remain current with commercial innovations in the compute space. And we're also exploring novel contracting approaches, such as expanding the number of contracts awarded under the Small Business Innovation Research Program, which enables rapid acquisition of USG-funded research and development and capabilities for operational use by the IC. And we are seeking to support more IC-wide contract vehicles that make it easier to scale innovation successfully adopted by one element across the entire IC. And finally, we are expanding and strengthening our collaboration with the private sector and academia in defense of key institutions that are under attack through improved information sharing, analytic insights, and collaborative threat mitigation efforts. The National Counterintelligence and Security Center is the primary organization within the US government for managing, coordinating, and integrating counterintelligence activities. And I've asked them to establish a pilot Joint Threat Assessment Team, or JTAT as we're calling it, that draws on a model some of you may be familiar with, the Joint Counterterrorism Assessment Team, which was established with great effect at our National Counterterrorism Center years ago to improve information sharing and enhance public safety. The new pilot will similarly be focused on improving information sharing with key private sector and academic research and scientific institutions that are subject to intelligence and security threats. In coordination with FBI and DHS, the JTAT will collaborate with other members of the IC to research, produce, and disseminate intelligence and security threat information for private sector entities within prioritized technology sectors, and to advocate for the intelligence requirements and needs of those institutions. And this effort will, I think, be transformational in helping to protect our institutions, but it is definitely going to take time for it to be fully functional and achieve the vision that we have in mind. And beyond threats to these sectors alone, I've also asked the National Intelligence Council to begin leading efforts with the private sector and academia to evaluate the overall balance of competitive strength within critical global industry sectors and domains to help facilitate more net assessment coverage and conversations. And this will be needed, of course, for many of the technology and techno-economic categories of strategic competition you hear us prioritizing increasingly today. But they will also be needed for other equally important political and civil society categories. And in sum, we have a great deal of work that is going on, and I am mercifully coming to the end of my remarks, but I do have one last thing that I want to discuss with you. We really need your help to make this work. As we develop these efforts to revolutionize the way we do our business with all of you, we will be coming to you to ask for your help. Moreover, we will make mistakes, and these initial efforts are likely to be a bit bumpy. So we also ask for your patience and assistance in improving them over time. We will want access to your insights, to your thinking on how your industry's development is likely to affect national security, and we will want you to take steps to protect your own intellectual property, data, expertise, and products, and to help us think through the right governance models for various disruptive technologies that often provide extraordinary opportunities for society. We know you won't always have time for this, and we are asking a great deal of you, but we need you, and we think you need us too. Together, we can better defend the freedom and independence of our society, including your institutions, while also making us more resilient to the dangers that exist from foreign actors. And together, we can enhance our duty to warn ability, defend and harden critical databases, protect intellectual property, secure infrastructure and critical supply chains, and so much more. In other words, we can help you better de-risk in an increasingly risk-filled world. And furthermore, we see this as a true partnership. U.S. policymakers expect the IC to provide the clearest and most complete picture of foreign risks to our country, to help improve their decision-making and our nation's strategic advantage. And this is an opportunity to participate in that, to ensure that as those decisions and policies are being made, that they will result in actions that will mitigate risks in ways that will deliver advantages to our country. We believe that our interests and goals are complementary and compatible, and that this should work. But I also recognize that the IC has often tried and failed to do this effectively. So we can no longer afford to fail, and we need your help and your active support to optimize the success of this systemic, strategic, whole-of-IC approach to the collaboration with industry and academia. And I think you understand better than most what is at stake, and I am truly grateful for the help that both AFCEA and INSA have been providing for years, enhancing our partnerships. I know how much I have personally, as an employee within government, benefited from their conferencing networks and thinking. And we want to build on that and get even better. Thank you so much for giving me this time and opportunity. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Lewis Shepard, Public Sector CTO of Broadcom and Chair, AFCEA Intelligence Committee.
Well, that was quite the compendium.
I know, it was a little long. I apologize.
No, not length, but richness. Yeah. That was extraordinary. And I think people are going to be studying the text and watching the C-SPAN replay of this for quite a while. It was extraordinary, and it made me reflect, if you will, on, you mentioned the short span of time that you've been a civil servant. But
it's my birthday today. I'm 30, so I feel really good about it.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
We will be also seeing another anniversary coming up in December, which is the 20th anniversary of the legislation that created the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah.
And in what you reflected in your remarks, the, as you called it, systemic and strategic vision of all the work you're currently doing and that you intend to set in place, not relying on personalities, but on OD&I. How do you see that? You have a unique vantage point from the couple of decades that you've been involved.
Yeah.
How do you see the evolution to be able to meet that tremendous challenge for this next era?
Yeah, honestly, I think I've benefited from my predecessor's extraordinary leadership of OD&I to put us into a position where I think we can increasingly, in a sense, fulfill the vision that the IRTPA had in mind. But but in part, it all depends on how you see that vision and what you think of as our role. And in large part, I think of our role as effectively bringing together the community in order to facilitate the work that the IC can do to better accomplish the vision that we have as an intelligence community to produce the intelligence that we know our policymakers, our warfighters, our operators need to make better decisions. That is sort of the fundamental piece of what we do. And when you go through, the statute or various expositions of what are our roles and responsibilities, right? There's a lot of focus on obviously being the principal advisor, so to speak, of the President and the National Security Council, the Homeland Security Council on intelligence matters for national security. And a lot of that gets done through the work of analysis and is sort of manifested, I think, in the PDB, bringing together the analysis of the community and bringing that forward. But then the second piece, which is, I think, possibly the meatiest part of this, is the sort of synchronization, prioritization, integration of our work across the community in order to actually produce what it is that's aligned with our national priorities for the intelligence community. And that is a space where we're constantly adapting because those priorities are changing and the sort of landscape is changing. And when we started 20 years ago, it was very much focused, obviously, on counterterrorism. I think we've done an enormous amount of work in that area, and I think you see a far more integrated community, in a sense, in order to counter terrorism. And what we're seeing now, of course, is integrating that community on things like strategic competition, on the PRC, on cyber, on now counter-narcotics, really trying to ensure that we are, in fact, working together for that purpose. So many different areas, space, and so on. And that's a place where I see the value we can play in bringing together the community effectively. And I think it's in each area, you see a different set of systemic issues that are important. In space, it's a lot of working out SAP-CAP integration, which some of you, unfortunately, may know what I mean by that. And, it's in other areas, for example, for counter-narcotics, it's a lot about making sure that law enforcement and the intel community can work together effectively to help. So it differs in different spaces, and I think we've made more or less progress in different areas, but I do think we've kind of grown up and we're now kind of cooking with gas, so to speak.
One of the ways that you keep driving success, I think, that demonstrably has been, and you referred to it, increasing transparency, and that's been a deliberate focus. We're in the context of a political season, obviously, and with that anniversary, we'll be in a transition era, transition period from one administration to the next, inevitably. How does that context affect your thinking as the DNI?
Oh, that's interesting. Meaning, how does transition sort of?
Well, not so much the transition, but transparency with broader communities.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about industry. We've got the industry reflects the American people in the same way that government does.
Yeah. So it's another thing that I think is really interesting. It has been a bipartisan view, in a sense, that transparency is important to the intelligence community. I mean, I think Director Clapper set up the the Intelligence Transparency Council. He issued a series of principles on transparency. And then you see Director Coates actually take it the next step. He actually took an intelligence community directive that we had on civil liberties and privacy, and he added transparency to it. And he really promoted this. And you can see in their speeches and in their things, and I'm just using two examples from two different parties, but it just shows you the consistency of this. We have done something very much trying to build on their work that is establishing a proactive transparency committee, essentially, under the Transparency Council. And what we're trying to do is, to your point, I think, we're looking at it from a couple of different perspectives. In part, I think it is critical to establishing trust with the American people, with the different communities that we work with, to actually be as transparent as possible about the work that we do. There are obviously quite a lot of things that we can't be transparent about, but producing frameworks that help people understand this is the framework within which we are going to be doing operations that we can't talk about, but this is what you can expect from us, I think is both important in terms of helping people to understand what we do in a way that allows them to then say, okay, I understand why you're doing that, but I don't understand why you're doing that, and then have a dialogue and a discussion about those issues, and and to sort of further that conversation, which I think is important in a democracy, and we need to be able to lend as much information as possible into that conversation, and also to show that we hold ourselves accountable to those frameworks, that as things come up that we can say, well, this leaked, or this is what happened, and this is why it's in the framework, or it's not, and we're taking action to correct that as we go through things. And one of the things we did recently was issue, and this was truly, it's an extraordinary, I'm in a very lucky position. I have colleagues across the intelligence community who lead the different elements, who are absolutely remarkable, and really all of them interested in what makes sense for the US government and really nothing else. And it is just a joy, in a sense, to work with them. And we all came together and we effectively worked through a framework for commercially available information, which we knew was a controversial issue, that we knew people were worried about it. How are we handling commercially available information if we acquire it? What's our process? How do they know that they can trust us with that kind of information and what we're doing with it? And we put out a very extensive framework on this issue. We've engaged with communities on these things. So that is a big piece of it. But you mentioned the transition and the election, and I think that's another place where working through how we communicate effectively with the American people in order to provide them with information about election security is obviously critical and quite challenging, and it is something where I think it's so important that we do it in a way that is seen as simply from a national security perspective, that we are not looking at this through a political lens, that we are just trying to provide information about warring, and and ultimately to develop the track record that gives the American people the confidence that that is in fact what we're doing and how we're doing it.
And it's perfectly put. Now, to that point, you mentioned earlier the Hill, and you have yet another unique vantage point because you also have been a Hill staffer in your past.
I have, yeah.
How would you assess that channel of that democratic dialogue, your work, OD&I and the IC, with the oversight committees and the Hill at large?
I think I try to talk about this quite a bit because I feel as if we are it's a bright spot, honestly, in what is otherwise a very challenging, obviously, political environment these days. I think we work with both our Senate and our House Intel community oversight committees on a bipartisan basis. They work with us on a bipartisan basis. When we brief them, we do it on a bipartisan basis. It is really, it's not that they agree with us on everything. That is certainly not the case. And of course, they're going to push us and we're going to, sort of have the conversation that we need to have. But there is just a fundamental respect and engagement that I find is very helpful. I'm constantly talking to the leadership of both committees. It really is, in my view, something that works. And I cannot, honestly, and obviously I come from a particularly, I have a perspective, but I don't think it's more important for any other part of government than it is for the intelligence community. Because we do so much in secret, ultimately Congress is sitting in the shoes of the American people, providing oversight over our activities. And this is a critical relationship from our perspective, and we do everything we can to ensure that it is as healthy as it can be so that we can ultimately work within the system in an effective way and give confidence to the public and to Congress that we're actually, when they ask us a question, we're going to tell them the answer and we're going to work through any issues that we have with them. And I found across both parties that they really have taken that responsibility to heart in the way in which they work with us. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's very positive.
Yeah.
Listening to your remarks, that rich list of activities, I was thinking back because in studying up, I was reading a little over 4 years ago, you co-led a major CSIS report task force on technology and innovation for intelligence.
I did it with Stephanie O'Sullivan, who
did.
used to be the PDD&I.
Absolutely.
Yes, she's amazing.
It was wonderful, and I don't know if you remember just how many recommendations it actually proposed. 103.
Yeah.
And I heard many of them ticked off in the work that you listed that you've been doing and launching. And it was impressive. And among them, and something you alluded to, was increased use of AI for many beneficial uses on our side and preventing malevolent uses. And to that point, since you mentioned the election season, anything to report or assess on use for election security?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, in essence, 3 trends that we're seeing currently in the context of election security. That one is just the expansion of the number of actors that are involved in it, and that's something that we're watching. The second is the use of commercial firms, which is another aspect of this that makes it harder to attribute sometimes, and also to who it is that's sort of behind the screen, but also can make the effort more sophisticated, essentially because of the commercial firms' use of sophisticated techniques for influence campaigns and so on. And the third is technology, and it really is sort of the most obvious of the 3, I think, to many people, which is that generative AI in particular, but just, the many technological tools that are available to folks today, including analytic tools that allow you to sort of take data and really target, for example, audiences that you want to focus in on and think about what's the information that you want to use and so on, is an area where we are obviously carefully watching and trying to ensure that we're keeping ahead of the curve in order to provide as much information as possible to policymakers and decision makers about what's happening, but also to help identify sort of opportunities for pushing back. And deep fakes, I think, is among the most, or sort of synthetic media, because you can have it in a variety of forms, is among the most challenging aspects of this, because in particular, we've seen in different elections globally how they can arise sort of very close to the election, create a reaction, and then ultimately potentially affect a situation. And that is something that we have a group that, within the IC that we work with, that works with industry, that works and uses technology that was developed by DARPA and others, essentially, that is effectively receives nominations of potential synthetic media. We then do work to effectively review that and ultimately provide information and an assessment to those who are asking. And it's a critical aspect of our work, and we are the beneficiaries, in a sense, not only of the government innovation that's been done, but really of tremendous industry innovation and work on trying to help us get better at ultimately spotting these types of deep fakes, and that is fundamental, and we can turn things around relatively quickly, and that is obviously critical, and provide the kind of analysis that then gives people some confidence in what we're saying, and I think that's also crucial to the work that we're doing, so that's certainly an aspect of it. But yeah, you are no stranger, Louis, to AI and to our capacity to use it and to benefit from it, and I imagine you might have some thoughts on this too. I don't.
At a later time. At a later time.
At a later
we're here
time,
to hear
yeah,
from
fair
you.
enough.
And
No,
I'll say one of the most inspiring parts to think about the future in your remarks was your focus on the workforce, the IC workforce, and the partnership with industry and academia. Now, as you know, we have a robust career fair as part of this conference, and we're so excited about the partnership with different agencies in your IC and with OD&I in helping create that. And we had several questions submitted about what more can industry and private sector, academia do, particularly to spur diversity, gender representation in new hires. And I noted in the OD&I report last week to the Hill about hiring rates that there's more work to be done, particularly on those areas, and oddly in relationship to civilian government, other non-IC government. Where do you see those challenges specifically that outsiders can help?
Yeah, there's tremendous work to be done here. First of all, I think it is important, and the more you can help us do this, the better. I certainly try to do this, just encouraging the younger generation to come in to the intelligence community and to understand that we do value a diverse workforce, and that is something that we are looking to promote and to try to provide an equitable opportunity for everybody in the intelligence community, and an environment that allows everybody to thrive based on who they are, and that we see diversity in the intelligence community as really crucial. And our annual demographic report that Lewis has just mentioned, that's just been recently issued, talks quite a bit about the importance of diversity, in a sense, in the foreword and otherwise, to our mission, to our capacity to be a learning institution, to innovate, to understand the world. We need to have that diversity. All of those things are fundamental to our work. And what we have been doing is promoting, not just the annual demographic report, but we actually have relatively recently, and it's, as you can imagine, this is not easy in the intelligence community, been putting out demographic statistics for every element, across our elements, at different grades, so that people can see what's happening across the intelligence community for our workforce. So that's something that's a dashboard that they can actually get access to and look at and see, how are we doing, this type of thing. And it helps us, frankly, not only to ensure that we're actually basing our analysis, in a sense, on facts as we're trying to promote diversity within the workforce, but also that we're being held accountable by our own workforce, frankly, to maintaining that approach and pursuing the objectives that we do have in this area. So I think that's sort of the one piece of it. But the second is really to say that it's absolutely extraordinary to work in the intelligence community. And I know many of you know that because many of you have been part of us at different times, and you certainly work with us enough to know. But we do focus a lot on STEM. We do want to see those skills come into the IC, but the reality is there really isn't any skill out there that we couldn't use in so many ways as we're trying to understand the world. And we talk about that a lot in recruiting and in helping people to understand the value of the work that we do. And I think it's hard in the IC because often students who may not have had contact with us in the past really don't know what we're about, what we do, what will their lives be if they come into the intelligence community. And so getting out there and helping people understand and being sort of our ambassadors to help them understand how important the work is that we do in the IC, the sort of extraordinary opportunity for learning that exists, the fact that as a government worker, as many of you will appreciate, you get to do things that you really didn't expect to be able to do at an early age because, frankly, it's an all hands on deck kind of situation, and we're all, being pushed to do as much as we can to help the country. And it is among the most wonderful people you could possibly work with. And when I think about how much I've enjoyed my experience in the IC, I think about the people first and foremost who are just extraordinary. You don't join the IC if you're interested in fame and fortune. You do it for other reasons, and it is, that in and of itself is worthwhile. The second is the learning, the just constant learning that you're doing by approaching so many different areas of interest, technology, science, liberal arts for that matter. It really is an incredible intellectual enterprise. And the sort of adventure of being able to do the kinds of things that you do within the intelligence community is extraordinary, and you have a purpose. And that last one is really so fundamental to, I think, what all of us do. And I know many of you, frankly, contribute to service through different means. And I think there are many ways to do it, but it is an extraordinary job to have that you feel as if every day you get to contribute to something that's larger than yourself, that has meaning, and hopefully you will bring that into the intelligence community.
Such an inspirational mission to understand the world. I think you really exemplify that. Well, we've borrowed you from a busy day, so I only have one last question. We're going to release you back to your work, but it's driven by remembering that you began work on day one of this administration, January 21st, so it's too early to ask a kind of legacy question.
Yeah.
So let's focus it on the future. Is there something left for the coming months, and who knows, maybe you'll spend a decade as DNI, something substantial that you feel is left undone, something you'd like to tackle or accomplish? You had a wonderful, rich list of visionary goals. What stands out as what you'd like to carve out?
Yeah, to do. I'll tell you, when we've gotten together as a community to talk about sort of what are the key priorities that each of us have in the intelligence community, the leaders of the intelligence community, or any of us get asked questions about what keeps you up at night, what do you want to do to sort of, this classic question. Honestly, what I find is that most of us, and really we had a kind of a consensus within the leadership of the IC as we produced our national intelligence strategy on this point, see the workforce, the institution, our capacity to be agile and capable of addressing the threats as a consequence of having the talented and diverse workforce that we need and the institutions that we need as being the most important thing that we can and should do for the future. And it's not as sexy as so many other things that you get to work on in national security, but it is so important. And throughout my time, I honestly have felt as if I can contribute in some way to both creating essentially a culture and the conditions to allow not just for the recruitment of that talent, but actually the retention of that talent, the development of that talent within the intelligence community and our ability to do our work, because I find that we have an extraordinarily talented workforce, and often the challenge they feel is that they can't do the job because of other barriers around them, and we're trying to actually reduce those and make it easier for them to do their jobs and to sort of bring forth the talent that they have on the issues that we're doing, and to think through the partnerships that we have. And this is a huge piece of work that's been years in the making that we've continued to sort of drive ourselves towards, and it takes a little bit of optimism, I think, to sort of say, we've been working on public-private partnerships for ages, right? We all know that the government doesn't work the way we want it to in that context. We really want to change that. We have got to make this better and, shifting it. But it's also in the context of foreign partnerships. It's also in the context of partnerships with, other parts of the government, right? Like, it's remarkable how important those are to make work more effectively, particularly in this moment. And those are the kinds of things that I end up spending a lot of time on, and that I hope I'll continue to, and really just to set things up for the next person who will have the extraordinary privilege of being in this position to sort of safeguard the work that we do and to, make things a little bit better is sort of my main hope. So hopefully.
Oh,
anyway.
Thank you. Well, that's an inspiring vision. You've got several thousand partners here in the room and representing many millions beyond who support that inspiring vision. And that strategic roadmap that you gave us today of the systemic changes you're pushing. Thank you so much for that work, and thanks for the time today.
Well, thank you for you, and thanks
Join
to
me in
all of you.
thanking the DNI.
Really. No, thank you.
Thank you.